Turn it over to Greg Rand, our Chief Strategy Officer, and let's give him a round of applause. Welcome up, Greg.
Good evening. How are you all? Very excited to have you here. I forgot my little piece of paper here. You know, I learned years ago that science shows that if I can get you to laugh, you'll associate some good feeling with me, and it makes the whole presentation go better for all of us. So I'm going to cheat a little bit and start off by telling a couple of really stupid dad jokes, if that would be okay. All right? Try not to laugh at this one. What do you call a person with no body and no nose? Nobody knows. Come on. All right? What time did the man go to the dentist? 2:30. And I made a pencil with 2 erasers. It was pointless. All right, see that? I almost got you laughing on that stuff. I found years ago that if I can throw a couple of dumb dad jokes in, I can get things going. What is the ROI of America?
You made them really excited, right?
Yeah, they were falling down laughing. What is the ROI of America is a topic that I talk a lot about because we view single-family homes as literally buying pieces of the United States of America. And I'm not being philosophical when I say that, I'm being literal. Right? The product is the country, the product is the Twin Cities, the product is Bloomington, and the house is the instrument through which you take a position in that investment category. And so we spend a lot of energy and time revealing data sets and data visualization for the kind of clients that Kevin was telling you about earlier, retail clients as we call them, everyday folks that are looking to use real estate investing as a wealth management retirement vehicle, you know, a way to basically set yourself up and the people that you care about and the people that aren't even born yet that you're going to care about with financial abundance someday, right? Real estate is the best vehicle in order to do that. But also on the other end, we have these Wall Street firms that have a level of, they're the most demanding people we've ever dealt with, and the level of transparency that we've been able to create around real estate markets and around the investment philosophies that really work on a large scale and a small scale. And we're going to try to share as many of those as we can in the next 45 minutes to an hour. So one thing I'll tell you is that dealing with the Wall Street firms, there's no doubt that there are things that they've figured out because of the volume of properties that they own across so many different geographies that we all can learn something. Small investors can learn something from them. But the opposite is true also. I've always found that entrepreneurial investors, like the people in this room, the things that you've discovered with your own intuition, ingenuity, grit, understanding of the local markets and so forth, you can teach a lot to the big players. And so we've got the benefit of kind of being in the middle of all that. So let me start by just sort of identifying what we mean by SFR. We're talking about tiny little houses usually that are in good locations that are going to be in demand. We're not talking about risky investment strategies, we're talking about wealth management. Okay, so setting targets 10, 20, 30 years out into the future. The way if you went and sat down with any financial advisor, most of them would be talking to you about 10, 20, 30 years into the future, and then fitting the kind of products that they are involved in into that plan. Same thing here. So single-family rentals, solid, dependable, and somewhere in the 8 to 12% ROI range, ROI, return on investment. I'm going to dig into that in a minute to tell you how we're defining that. But the idea is, okay, you can get an 8% return half asleep. You barely have to try. And if you do some strategizing, and all of this, by the way, everything I'm talking about, I don't fix houses, okay? I've been investing for 30 years. My hands are so soft that if I picked up a hammer, I probably, like the joke is that when I hold a baby, my hands get chafed. That's how out of practice I am with fixing things. But I can get 12% returns because I can figure out where people are going. I can look at the tea leaves and understand where the demand is going to be surging in the future, because it isn't about predicting the future, it's about watching behavior today. Like Kevin talked about the millennials, they're an interesting group, right? They get dragged through the mud a lot. A lot of people have a lot of things to say about millennials. I think they're cool. And people said a couple of years ago they don't want to buy houses. And it's like, well, they're people, so they're probably going to want to buy houses, but we knew they were taking longer to get married. We knew they were taking longer to settle down. We knew they were taking longer to move out of the house. they're gonna live to 100, so they're just taking a little bit longer to do some of these things that people tend to do. And so they're waiting a little bit longer, and it was funny, Kevin sent me that article, because we've been saying this for a long time, like, why does anybody think millennials, like, if you asked me what was important to me about my housing decisions in my 20s, it was how long would the walk home from the bars be? That's what I cared about. And then I had kids and I cared about the schools. I changed, not the world. So millennials, again, all part of understanding human nature, where are people going? Housing demand is tied to population growth inextricably, and so if you understand population growth, you win. Something, Kevin talked about the size of the market. I find this interesting. From the standpoint of if you're an investor and you own rental properties, how big of a market segment is this? And the industry of real estate for decades thought it was like a little niche. Like you go through neighborhoods and the houses are all owned by occupants, and maybe there's a rental here or there. Turns out 13% of all the households in the country live in single-family houses that they rent. So it's not some little market niche, it's not some little minor segment, it's a massive market category. And to put it in context, that's as many people as drive SUVs in this country. So when you think about investing or growing your portfolio, what you're talking about is, this is the demand, this is your customer. Okay, when you own a property, rent it out, your tenant's your customer, that's how many, you might have noticed some SUVs out on the highway, that's how big of a market segment this is. What it isn't, at least from my perspective, is looking for a distressed property. Nothing wrong with distressed properties, but the idea that in a marketplace in real estate in 2019 that is this transparent, that you're gonna find a lot of people that are willing to sell you their houses for dramatically less than they're worth, means you have to find somebody who doesn't know Zillow exists, doesn't have any friends in real estate, and has no idea what their house is worth. And unfortunately, sometimes you have to let them believe it's worth less in order to get that deal from them. So we don't engage in that, because I don't think 8 to 12% is a bad ROI at all. And I think if you can get 12 without taking much risk, you don't have to get involved in the repairs. If you want to, you can make more, but a lot of people, because of so much of the noise around real estate investing, like the TV shows and the seminars and the books, so much of it is about getting rich quick. Kevin made the joke earlier, that's true. We've been in the back of the room at seminars where they say, join our program, 20,000 bucks. We're gonna teach you all the secrets, and the first thing we're gonna teach you is how to make your first deal with no money down. Because of course you're not gonna have any more money because you gave us 20 grand to teach you the secret, right? So we don't do that. We don't get involved in this guy. I found this picture years ago on a real estate investment website. I wouldn't lie to you, okay? So it's not about that. It's about responsible, long-term financial planning. So the ROI of SFR, let me just take a second to kind of lay the groundwork on this. Our definition of ROI, a standard definition of ROI, the way Wall Street looks at this, is yield plus appreciation. Yield is how much profit you make after you collect your rents and pay your expenses. And then appreciation is how much more valuable does the property get each year. All right? And so as a baseline, America is about a 10. Okay, depending on where you go, it's around a 6% yield and it's around a 4% appreciation rate. So buying a nice house in a good school district in a safe neighborhood, depending on where you are, the funny thing is if you buy in a more expensive area, you get a 5% yield, but that neighborhood tends to appreciate at 5% a year. So you still wind up knocking on the door at 10% when you combine these two things. You go to Dallas and Charlotte, you're looking at 5s and 5s. You go to Austin and Raleigh, you're looking at 4s and 6s. And you come here to Minnesota and you're looking at generally something in the high 5s to 6 and something in the 4s. Let me explain that. I'm not going to do much math with you, but I want to make sure this may be second nature to you, but let me just go through the numbers real quick. So yield, in my example, $200,000 house, okay? The income, I'm generating $1,500 a month in rent, so I got $18,000 a year in income. My expenses are $6,000 a year, so my taxes, my insurance, my property management fee if I have a property manager, my maintenance costs, $6,000. So my net operating income is $12,000. So if I wrote a check up for $200,000 and I just waited and ran the property for a year, I'd make 12 grand, and if I divide 12 grand by 200 grand, I've got 6%. Okay, all day long, without breaking a sweat, nice single-family homes produce yields like that. HPA, also known as home price appreciation, this is a chart that shows you the green line is Hennepin County, The blue line is the USA, and the black line is the state of Minnesota, going back 20 years. What's interesting about this, folks, is that when you zoom out, you learn things. You'll see stories in the news about home prices are up 0.2% yesterday from the day before. Oh my God, we're going to have a problem with affordability. And then home prices went down 1% last month. Oh my God, we're headed for a crash. If you zoom out, what you get a sense of is how the market performs during what we call the stress test, right? This is the US right here, okay, the blue line. This is the big housing boom, this is the big housing bust, and this is the recovery, right? And you can make a judgment, an observation just by looking at this that, all right, the green line is Hennepin County, so it started out right about the same place as the state of Minnesota, and right about the same place as the rest of the country, but it did really well during the boom times. It did better than the rest of the country. And then it corrected, kind of tracked, but in other words, I like this because it grew faster, created a gap between the county and the rest of the country, and then it held on to that gap, even though it came down. It kind of kept that spread that it created during all those years, okay? Something else that I like about this, you notice the heartbeat? Anybody have an idea of why this? What do you think this is right here? Seasonality. Yeah, seasonality, right? Everybody knows that the housing market is seasonal, but did you know that if I actually put the numbers on this, you can see like a 10% swing in the median price if you buy in the winter. So now why would that be the case in Minnesota? Anybody want to throw out a guess? People tend to want to stay inside and watch football and not necessarily go out. And I'm from North Carolina. They got me up here for the vortex this year, 27 below. As a matter of fact, they teased me a lot. Because I had to come up for meetings, so they're like, Greg, you know, layers. I'm like, okay, layers. They're like 5 layers. Like, it's really dangerous, 5 layers. I'm like, okay. Next day I get a text, Vaseline for your ears, your earlobes. I'm like, if I show up there with Vaseline in my earlobes and you guys all start laughing at me, I'm going to bring the whole jar with me and we're all going to have a lot of Vaseline. So they told me we're just kidding about the Vaseline. Why am I talking about this? Because of the seasonality. These are facts. This is data visualization. Okay? We have to master these data sets to be able to help these big Wall Street firms figure out where to buy, what to buy, where the trends were moving and everything else. And when we started taking these charts and revealing these numbers, we started learning things that people anecdotally knew. But if you're investing, does it make sense to buy in the fourth quarter versus in the spring market? Yeah, why? Because home buyers are on the sidelines. That does it mean that cheaper houses are selling in the fourth quarter? Does it mean like you getting better deals in the fourth quarter? What it means is that the people that have to sell in the fourth quarter take the best deal they can get. The ones that don't have to sell, wait until the spring and sell it then. So you find a situation when you're one of the lesser people in the demand side of the equation. You've got some leverage in the transaction, and if you find somebody who needs to sell before the holidays, you're going to get a better deal, and all these people got a better deal because of that. So you see, nice houses, good condition, don't require repairs, don't need to find somebody who's desperate, just want to time my acquisitions for the fourth quarter. All right, so hopefully, like my goal, of course, here is to add value to you all so that when you leave, you come away saying, like, I knew something about real estate, I knew a lot about it, and I learned a couple of things from those guys. Cool. Or I'm totally new to this and I have a degree of confidence now that I didn't have before, and everything in between. That might be something that is a takeaway for you. By the way, this chart, I'm going to be showing you our website in a minute. It's all free. All this data and technology and analysis is all available for free. So we're big believers, I forgot to mention this. When you watch Flip This House, and when you go to the seminar about getting rich quick, they talk a lot about deals, 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 right? It's all about finding a great deal. And that kind of ignores what everybody always used to say was the first rule of real estate. What's the first rule of real estate? Location. Yeah, exactly, right? Location, location, location. Not deals, deals, deals. I've seen so many investors buy the wrong house in the wrong place because they found the right deal, and then after a little period of time, they realized it was a mistake. I also know a lot of investors who flip. I've been in front of audiences like this that are all flippers, and I'm talking like this, and they're like ready to kill me because they're saying, this is lazy, this is too easy. You know, I did 300 flips a year last year. Well, I've done 300 flips a year for the last 10 years. My question to that gentleman was, what would your life be like if you kept half of those houses? And he says, I'd retire. I said, that's what I'm talking about. So, very strongly believe in this concept of where you buy is actually more important than what you buy. Okay, location, figuring out where the momentum is going population-wise, people watching, trying to understand what makes, if it's Minneapolis or St. Paul, or what pocket within these areas, what is drawing people in, what's keeping them here, and is that going to continue? And so this is the starting point of the conversation, is how has it performed during the stress test? And the answer is, as well as any market I've ever seen in the country. All right? And Wall Street didn't come here. The big Wall Street firms, very few of them came here. You know why? Because they're afraid of frozen pipes. One reason. Like, things happen for reasons, and opportunities exist, and opportunities open and close based upon real decisions made by real people. This is probably one of the best real estate markets in the country to invest in my opinion, and it's unmolested by the Wall Street giants, which is a really good thing. Weird thing to say about it, but I don't know where some of this comes from, Ken. These are the averages, by the way. National average for 20 years, 3.63%. State average, 4.02. County average, 4.35. So if you get a 5.65% yield, profit on your rents, and a 4.35, there's your 10. So I went to renterswarehouse.com, and I clicked on search properties, and I put Minneapolis, and this is what I got, right? It's almost like any other real estate website out there, but it's different in a couple of really important reasons, or a couple of very important ways. These are all the properties that are for sale on the MLS, so you can find the same things you see on Zillow, or Coldwell Banker, Remax, Edina Realty. You see those same houses here. The difference is that we're showing them through the prism of ROI. So you can see each of the properties on the right, you can see an ROI number next to them, and there's no other search filters on here. So you can see as I'm looking at the entire city, and I scroll down, I've got 9s, I've got 8s. We've got numbers in here of what these houses would probably rent for, what they would probably cost to operate, what they would probably yield, and what the asking price on them is. And that data is based upon 10 years of bulletproofing working with these Wall Street firms. So it's not perfect. It requires somebody, a human being. I hear a lot about artificial intelligence. I'm a big fan of like real intelligence, like human intelligence. So you apply the human intel to dial these things in, but as an example, here's a 9.78, and I can jump into this and look at the financial numbers, and there's a calculator in here that shows me how it got to a 4.8% yield and how the appreciation rate of 4.96 is added to that for a total ROI of 9.78. And I can monkey around with all these assumptions and watch these numbers change. And what I would encourage you to do, since it's free and you don't have to even register to use it, is please do that. All right, go in there and play around, do the research in different markets and see what you uncover. So for example, I don't know Minneapolis that well. I've only been working at Renters Warehouse since January. And I've kind of gone from the airport to the hotel to the office, back to the airport, back to the hotel. But I can spend a few minutes on this and say, okay, I'm going to go up to the right, the northeast here. I guess we've got a university right around here, so I'm going to check out the university area just by zooming in. And it's zooming in on the properties in this area. And I can start to see how the ROIs change. It gets a little more expensive, and the ROIs tend to come down. I can then swing my search and get away from downtown out here, wherever that is. And I can see the ROIs. This is an expensive area that I'm looking at. All right, so if I scroll down to, where am I going next? Where are we now? We're in
Bloomington.
someplace around here, right?
We're in Bloomington.
We're in Bloomington, actually. Tell my Uber driver. Anyway, you get the idea. By basically just moving the cursor around, I can change my minimum. I can say I want a minimum of 10%. And again, the 10% is that combination. It's a really important thing to not just look at what the yield is. Yield is also known as cap rate. A lot of people will tell you, well, it's all about the cap rate, all about the yield. The appreciation is a bonus. It's a really important bonus because it gets you the rest of the way to your 10% plus. And one of the reasons that I think a lot of people don't want to try to put any kind of a forecast on it is because they don't have a methodology to create a forecast. And our belief is that a 20-year average is a perfectly reasonable number. It's going to be conservative. On that 20-year average, that, by the way, that's right, if I go into this house right here, the charts that I was just showing you, and then some others are right here under market data. I guess we got a condo, whatever. All right, so here's the same chart, okay, scrunched up a little bit, but then I can go in, all right, so I see the stress test. I see the seasonality. I like what I see because I like seeing a market go through a correction and then fight its way back, kind of to where it seemed like it wanted to go anyway. Like it picked up the trend line and it kept going, right? Now I want to look at population change. Okay, the green line is good. Population is growing. This is a steeper incline than you see in almost any city in the country. And everybody thinks it's too cold to live here, outside of here. You guys know what the appeal is, right? Well, tell me, if somebody was going to say, well, if it's so cold, why don't people go? Why don't you take off to Texas or the Carolinas? What's your answer as somebody who lives here? What do you like about it? Just shout it out.
Keeps the riffraff out.
Keeps the riffraff out. You don't want the New Yorkers showing up like, hey, it's pretty good. I think I like this. Hey, Vinny, come on. That's what happened in Carolina. I'm one of those guys. What else? People nice? Is that part of it? It's part of the reason why the South gets a lot of traction. All right? Anyhow, it's real. Okay? It's not like Minnesota nice is just a bumper sticker. All right? It's quality of life things. That's part of the point. Is that the data will get you pretty far in being able to see what's happening, and the question becomes why. And the why is all qualitative. It's all, why are people living there and staying? Why Todd Jabel, our CTO, he left and he couldn't wait to get back, right? 18 months and his whole family was ready to leave him in Atlanta and get back up here again. I know a lot of people who leave and come back. I don't know a lot, but I've heard, like, I've talked to a lot of Uber drivers, so I know 5 people. Population growth equals housing demand, right? Housing demand equals upward pressure supporting values, and upward pressure supporting increased rents, period. It's not complicated, it's just people. Now I look at, this is migration, black line shows people leaving, green line shows them coming in. So more people are leaving than are coming in, but way more people are coming in overall. So you still got the growth. Unemployment, this is a great one. Unemployment rate, the green line is your county here in Hennepin. So the unemployment rate is like historically low and you're half of it. Right? That's the kind of thing that like, we're going to talk in a few minutes about investing someplace else in the country, but I don't know why anybody would. Okay? Not when you live right here. And then job diversity. I'm a big fan of this. I don't know how well you can see it, but it shows you the job categories that make up the employment base in the area. And when you see a lot of pieces of the pie that are good-sized slices but not too dominant, it becomes, so professional and business services, number 1. That's the best thing to be number 1. Number 2 is trade, transport, utilities. That's the best thing to be number 2. Education and health, financial activities, government is number 5. Oh, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah. That's the best thing to be late in the game, right? Anyway, this is the kind of analysis that causes people that are trying to pick winners around the country to take notice. All right? And it's right here in your backyard. So the ROI of Minneapolis is, you go back over to this chart over here, or this grid of properties, and I did a minimum of 10%, and if I go minimum of 10 and I zoom out, I'm going to see what pockets produce the return that I'm looking for. A lot of them. Let me go to 11. Right, okay, so I'm starting to see some things zoning in now. See how that works? Right? Put some filters on it, let the ROI emerge, figure out which markets. You know these places better than I do. All right, but this is the place where you're going to be talking about 11, 12% ROI. And again, without breaking a sweat. Any questions on that? Okay. All right, cool. All right, go back over to presentation over here. So we're going to bounce around the country at the end of the presentation here to show you a comparison of some other things. But I wanted to take a moment to recognize the sponsors and then talk about investment strategies that we've seen people deploy that worked really well, that are real common sense, and hopefully you'll find them interesting. And so each of those, these are our sponsors, and each of them sponsored one of these strategies. Farmers Insurance, Drew, are you in here somewhere? Where's Drew? Drew's in the back, everybody. He's got a table out in the back also. Thank you, Drew, for being here and supporting the event. When you have a glass of wine in your hands, find Drew and thank him, because these guys help pay for all this stuff. Compartmentalization is a strategy that dovetails right along with this idea of wealth management. And the concept is build an investment portfolio, starting with one property, maybe ending with one property, okay? But assign specific objectives to each property, and those objectives are things that are important in your life, okay? Link specific properties with specific long-term goals. Why? Because if you start thinking about things like retirement, for a lot of people, retirement is 10 years out, 20 years out, 30 years out. And if you're thinking 20 to 30 years, you have all the time in the world to plant seeds and allow an investment strategy to kind of mature and manifest itself. And if you start looking at, instead of, it's my retirement fund, if it's like, this house is a retirement income. This house is retirement income. This house is a boat. This house is a Corvette. Like, I don't care, right? Whatever you're into, whatever you are gonna, if you can link a long-term investment decision with a powerful long-term motivation, and I'm not making this up, this actually came, I learned real estate investing for the first 10 years of my career in real estate, in commercial real estate in New York, but not the big beautiful glass towers in downtown, midtown Manhattan, the nasty industrial grease pit buildings in northern New Jersey, okay? And I was actually, my only time riding in a helicopter was with an investor who was showing us, big barrel-chested Italian guy, hair coming out the top, and he's like, see that down there? That's my first building I ever bought. Looked disgusting. It was like one big giant pile of rust, right? Industrial. It's like, I love it. And then he said, that building was for my daughter. Oh, like, what do you mean? For my daughter. So no man would ever control her with money. Like, if you start to get mad, like, no man's gonna control my daughter with money. I was like, that's an awesome idea. How old's your daughter? She's 3 months old. It's like, okay. Got it. Linking specific objectives to specific properties. He felt really good about the fact that he had his daughter protected because he bought this grease pit of an industrial warehouse and he fixed it up and the table was beautiful. But you see my point, right? Thank you, farmers, for that. The next one, kind of along the same lines. I wrote a book 10 years ago called Crash Boom, and it was during the housing crisis, and it gives you an idea of what I thought was going to happen after a boom. And one of the chapters that ended up being a popular one was have a kid buy a condo, because my college plan, my kids are both in high school now, my college plan for them, being a real estate guy, was buying a piece of property for her college fund, and then he was born and I scraped together to buy a piece of property for his college fund. And it worked out really well, because the objective was important to me. I mean, I'm responsible to set these kids up with an education. It was deeply rooted, I was very passionate about it. It had an 18-year timetable, right? So I'm gonna mature the kid and mature the investment at the same time. That was the theory. I did a condo because my hands were full, right? So condo, it was a brand new construction condo. I didn't have to do anything. It was all about me just being able to be as hands-off as possible. And the idea is that I rode through the whole housing crisis. My condo got more valuable, and then this is like 2001, 2004. So right after I bought the second one, the value started declining. I didn't care. It wasn't important to me what it was worth in 2008. It's important to me what it's worth in 2021 and 2024, right? So this really worked. It gave me sort of the stomach to deal with when a tenant issue happens, right? I had a property manager, but something breaks, I have to pay for it. I didn't get annoyed because it's for Diana. You know, when a tenant leaves and we have to deal with a down month and no income, didn't mind because it's for Patrick. This is their college funds, right? So I had a lot of patience. And I didn't worry about the value in between, and it was a really, really important thing. Because I know a lot of people that freaked out in 2008 and dumped properties for a loss. I didn't do that because that wasn't my purpose. I had a purpose that was anchored on something long-term. All right? Oh, leader one. Where's Kim? Is Kim in the room? And Kim, you have a colleague with you, right?
Yes, Courtney.
Hi, how are you? Can you guys want to stand up and just wave so everyone sees you? Leader one is a mortgage company. Does all kinds of financing, specializes in the long-term financing on investment properties that are the kinds that you would use to do the things that I'm talking about here, okay? So have a kid buy a condo. I put this stuff on Instagram. People are like, condos suck. I'm like, it's a metaphor, whatever. Actually, it's funny. Quick thing on social media, Instagram, they're like, you're fired, dude. So like, they're kids, right? Facebook, they're like, you suck. That's a stupid idea. So people go to Instagram to like, I don't know, party. People go to Facebook to complain, and then LinkedIn is all business, so it's okay. But I'm learning. Apparently I suck on Facebook, on the daily. BRRR, Pine Financial Group. Where's Sean? Sean, you here somewhere? Sean, you want to stand up real quick so they recognize you? Okay, that's Sean. Pine Financial Group is a lender that is different. They're shorter term. hard money, private money, okay? This is an organization that can help you execute on the BRRR strategy, which I know I've been talking about not flipping, but this is the kind of flipping that you can do where you're not trying to find a desperate situation, you're just trying to find a house that needs repair. And you're not afraid of that like I am. So BRR is buy, something that needs help, repair, rent and resell. I clicked it too fast. Buy, repair, rent. What you've done is created a rental property. Okay, you might want to keep it. Okay, but you can also resell it and then repeat. This is the strategy. The BRRR thing is not something we ever came up with. I've heard a lot about it. It's the part of the whole flipping side of the business that I can get behind because you can create equity out of thin air if you have the capabilities and a partner, or you can do it yourself, or you have a contractor you trust to actually do the repair component. All right, Renters Warehouse, I think Kevin touched on it. We are the foundation of our company. It's a property management company. So all the dirty work of dealing with the tenants, the toilets, and everything else, right? On top of that, we now have a real estate company. Who here works for Renters Warehouse? Raise your hands. Okay, great. These are folks that are all schooled in all this, that can help you identify and find and help you acquire those properties, or if you have one you want to sell, help you sell them. And on top of that, we have that wicked portal that I just showed you that is like the place to go and do all the research to your heart's content. And right behind that website are these people and then the property management company behind that. So we're excited because our point of view is real simple. Real estate investing is awesome. Everybody should do it. It's been really hard, so not everybody does do it, and we're trying to make it easy. Simple, right? So thank you to Pine Financial Group and Sean for sponsoring. And then the Snowball. This one is fun. Snowball Strategy goes like this. First house you buy, this is a lot of young people that get a kick out of this one. First house you buy a 2-family. You live in the crappy apartment, you rent out the nicer one to somebody else. Now you've got your living expenses subsidized. After a couple of years, you decide to move out. You were able to get an owner-occupied mortgage on that property because you in fact lived in it. You don't have to live there for very long, but a couple of years is all the time you need. Then you keep that property, you buy the next one. All right? And then you live in that one for a period of time. Again, you get a home ownership mortgage on that, which are the really low rate ones, the really attractive ones. And then you move on, and if you can, you keep that and you roll the snowball. Okay? I've seen people end up at age 35 with 5 or 6 properties with loans paid way down just by doing, this is one simple concept. There's a fact of life that you have to pay for a roof over your head, unless you want to live outdoors, right? So that's going to be an expense in your life. If you can take that expense and channel it through an investment strategy, so you're paying a check every month, instead of just paying it to a landlord or paying it to a bank, pay it through a strategy where you're trying to create momentum by living in properties that will eventually become investment properties. Does that make sense? Anybody here own an investment property right now that you at one point lived in before? Okay, a bunch of you, right? That's the snowball. Now, if you decide you want to sell it, all right, that's where First American Exchange comes in. Where's Joe VC? You in here somewhere, Joe? In the back, there's Joe. 1031 exchange, Kevin talked about tax benefits. One of the tax benefits is that you are not going to pay capital gains if when you sell a property, you do a 1031 exchange, which basically allows you to, and he knows the details, but basically when you go to sell a property, you have to identify the property you're going to buy next in a relatively short period of time, 45 days. Then you go into contract, and then when you close on it, it has to happen within 6 months, and then you pay no capital gains at all, you defer all of it. So if you decide your snowball strategy includes saying, this 2-family I bought 10 years ago has been great, but I really want to get it over here, I'm going to sell that, you just make the jump, and you transition your equity over to the next property, and you don't pay capital gains. And that really lets the snowball roll. Does that make sense? So talk to Joe about 1031 exchanges, because it's one of the gifts that the IRS gives us. All right? And the last one is the final destination. Kind of a creepy name, but it's about where you're going to go to die. Okay? Where you're going to retire. Where's the end of the road going to be, right? I know a lot of people who ask, a lot of New Yorkers call into our live shows and say, New York is too expensive, I can't get a yield. There's no profitable way to invest in New York without going into really dangerous neighborhoods. Where should I go? And I say, well, where do you go on vacation? Every time. We go to Florida on vacation. Where do you plan on retiring? Every time. We plan to retire to Florida. Once in a while they say North Carolina now. So the final destination is all about if you want to invest outside of where is your home market. Okay, Minneapolis is great, but you decide you really want to do something else. You want to go someplace else. People say, where else should I go? Our answer is always the same. What other markets in the country do you have an attachment to? Place that you vacationed, place you went to college, place you want to end up retiring someday. That's a great one because usually the vacation is connected with that. So you plant the seeds. That house becomes retirement. You pay attention. The beauty of this is that if you've got a connection to a place, you've got family that lives there, you go Thanksgiving there once in a while, it gives you an anchor. Like when a hurricane's coming through, you're aware, like if you don't know anybody on the East Coast, the hurricane came through, you're like, oh, I hope it's okay. But if you have family on the East Coast, you're like, where's that thing coming? Like you're watching it closely, right? That connection to your life winds up giving you the surveillance motivation, the motivation to keep an eye on it in a way that is more close and more sort of automatic and passive. Does that make sense? Right? In other words, it's a big country, right? And where's Willard? Willard, stand up for a second, my man. This is Willard Barnett. Willard he builds properties all over the country. And so one of the things that we like to say is, if you're going to invest outside your area, we love the idea of investing in a brand new house outside your area. So at least the issue of what is the condition really like? What is, buying something brand new from a company like Willard's means you get a house that's all brand new, no one's ever lived there, the AC is brand new, the roof is brand new, the kitchen's brand new, everything's new. And so being a guy I'm aggressive in some ways, investment-wise, but I also am risk-averse in other ways. And so if I'm gonna go outside my home market, my recommendation is buy a new house outside your home market so that the condition risk is basically zero because he built it brand new. So thank you for being here. It's a big country. You've got new developments almost everywhere on that map that you guys could buy. So see him and his team if you're interested in taking a look at things outside. All right, so how am I doing here? I'm getting tight. All right, so finding value in places where others are missing it, right? This is something that we've become expert at, trying to figure out the moving, shifting plates of earth to figure out where people are going to be going and where the big opportunities are. So we're going to do a tale of two cities and compare a couple of different cities and just sort of show you the things that we look for to indicate, like literally last week we had two major clients that each have $1 billion they want to spend on houses. And they're asking us, where should we go? We don't want to go to Atlanta and Phoenix and Tampa and Charlotte and Dallas because all the other big Wall Street players kind of already crowded into those markets. And the biggest players have thousands of properties in those markets, so they were actually asking the right question. Where else is there great opportunities? And the truth is that almost everywhere. And so we do a comparison, and we refer to it as the late bloomer. All right, so think about, here's the principle. Think about if you know the Minneapolis market the best. You know how there are some suburbs, you go different directions around the city, some suburbs developed a little sooner than others, the houses are older, maybe they're more high-end, maybe they're not more high-end, but they're all different, right? It doesn't all happen. Like what tends to happen in the city is that there's the core, and then the concentric circles, it tends to get less expensive as it goes out. But it's not all even. There are different suburbs that mature at different paces, for different reasons. Related to, one was the place where the original founding city mothers and fathers lived, and that's where the high-end neighborhoods are, and the best schools ended up, and they become the most expensive suburb. And the exact same number of miles the other way in a different direction, completely different story. It relates to where was there a developer and a mayor or a city council that got together and built hundreds of houses and created an entire suburb back in the 50s or 60s or whatever, right? So different suburbs mature at their own paces. And so you can look at any city and find places like this little pocket over here looks a lot like this pocket over here did 15 years ago. So let's buy over here because we kind of can get a feel for the reasons why this part of the city did well are now happening over there. Let's go invest over there, and it's not all that risky because you're not predicting the future. You're just seeing the pattern making its way to a new place. Does that make sense? All right. All right. So what you got here is what I have. I've got Hennepin County, so I've got Minneapolis, and I've got Phoenix. Two cities that are completely different. And everybody piled into Phoenix. Why? So look at this chart. This is your 20-year price appreciation. This is theirs. So look at that, right? This is why they all went crazy for it back in the day, because the home prices were plummeting. They got abused in that city, okay? It's amazing when you watch the line though. If you start the trend line and you split the peak and the trough of the boom and the bust and carry it forward, it almost always ends up right where it kind of was going anyway. Does that make sense? All right, I see this. Every market I'm going to show you has some element of that, or in some cases goes a little bit too high. But I like this as a comparison because all the big players went there, but the average appreciation rate is 3.96, where for you guys is 4.35. One of the hottest single-family investment markets in the country, and they should have come here instead. Better opportunity. This is just a population change. I showed you this earlier. So everyone says, well, Phoenix is growing in leaps and bounds. Everyone's running out of California and going to Phoenix. And yet the population growth here is steeper than Phoenix. That's kept secret. Oh yeah, this is Charleston, South Carolina. Excuse me. Charleston, South Carolina. Okay, it's been a phenomenal market, 6.5% appreciation. It's on the coast, all right? This is Savannah. If you look at the green line, forget about the other lines. The green line looks real similar until Charleston began to take off, and it's kind of flat in Savannah. Now, real quickly, what's happening in Savannah that's very interesting. This is a strategic approach that some of you will sort of seize upon and want to apply this kind of stuff to your own thinking. The Panama Canal was built a little over 100 years ago. You familiar with the Panama Canal, right? So ships could get under and split North and South America and get around and land in the ports on the southeast coast, Gulf of Mexico, East Coast US. Except that the ships have gotten so much bigger over the century that the biggest ships coming out of China and the Far East couldn't make it through the canal. Too narrow, too shallow, right? So almost 100 years to the day, the anniversary, so 102 years later, Panama Canal reopens. It got dug deeper, it got expanded wider, and it was able to handle what they call post-Panamax ships. They're like 6 times bigger than the ones that could get through before. So what happens? All the shipping lanes are starting to get redrawn across the globe. And they're coming through the canal. Ships that used to land in Long Beach, California and LA and offload their cargo onto trains and trucks to come to the upper Midwest, the Midwest, and the East Coast are now, those same ships are now coming all the way through. And guess what? The ports in Corpus Christi, Houston, and New Orleans, and Tampa, and Miami, Jacksonville, Savannah, Charleston, Norfolk, Virginia, those ports have all been fighting and jockeying for position. Who can raise the money fast enough to get the approvals from the government to dig their port deeper and bigger so that they can get an outsized share of the new shipping business? Okay? Like, what does the Panama Canal have to do with real estate investing? That's what it has to do with it. Is that places like Jacksonville, Charleston, they are in the process of a surge in job growth related to that mega trend. But there's another mega trend that affects Savannah especially, and that is Amazon. Okay? Anybody here got a same-day delivery from Amazon yet? Same day, right? The trend is called last mile infrastructure. Last mile is how do they get you everything you want by getting it as close to you as they possibly can. So like it's gonna be like, I need a new charger for my phone. Push the button, it comes the same day. I need a bottle of ketchup, I need a gallon of milk, I need eggs. They're going there, okay? So the distribution, once something comes off the truck, once it comes off the ship, if they want to get it to your doorstep, there's a whole redrawing of the internal lanes of getting the stuff from the ports all the way to as close to your house as they possibly can. And what Savannah did is Savannah made a massive investment, they're not the biggest port, they made a massive investment in the train lines to get stuff. They're spidering out from Savannah to get the train lines to get as much stuff up, especially to the Midwest, as they possibly can. So I'm going into more detail than maybe I should have, but I want you guys to see that this is reading the Wall Street Journal, looking at trends and saying, hey, I want, like people who invest in the stock market, they say, hey, I heard that X, Y, Z is happening. What companies can I buy that can help me capitalize on that mega trend? Real estate works the same way. You read into mega trends and you figure out what real estate markets are going to be positively impacted by this and how can I play that by buying residential real estate in that place. Does that make sense? No? Yeah? Good. All right, population growth off the charts, look at that, boom. I'll do the last couple. Colorado Springs versus Denver. Denver, shot from a cannon, all right? Denver, all the great fundamentals, job growth, population growth, quality of life, fresh air, everybody loves it. The prices went nuts from 2012 on. Colorado Springs, exact same chart up until 2012 and didn't take off. So same chart for the first 3 quarters. This took off, this is going to take off for the exact same reasons. The reasons why Denver is popular is happening in Colorado Springs, and it's just happening 10 years later, maybe 15 years later, so we're making that recommendation. And it's very easy to make when you have the data visualization. All right, population cranking. All right, who's got questions?
Are you getting your prices from the Fannie Mae Freddie Mac info or BLS or CoreLogic?
That make those charts?
Yeah.
So the housing data, we actually have a company called SmartZip Analytics that we buy the long-term price appreciation data from. They get it from CoreLogic. It all starts with the public record of home sales. And so the way the big data in housing works is that it's all recorded in local municipalities. 2 big title companies, and CoreLogic is one of them, digitized all that data, but it's a big, gigantic data mess, and then companies like SmartZip sit on top of that, create easy to homogenize data sets that we then can get and turn those charts out from there. The price appreciation is from them. The rental rates that feed into our system are a combination of their data, plus we have a ton. We're managing 22,000 houses right now. I don't know, how many thousands do we manage right here?
Minneapolis, we manage about 4,000.
4,000. So we append our own knowledge of the rental data into that to create something unique. And the home price data is, from another source just like that. We've been bulletproofing these data sets for years now. That's the reason why we're so confident to put it up the way we do, is that we've used everything that was out there and figured out these are the ones that were the most reliable. Okay, good question. So the question is, how much of the yield could go into a loan payment? On the website, by the way, you can put mortgage assumptions in and see exactly what it is. My recommendation is put down minimum 25%. If you can scrape together 30 or 35%, we recommend putting it. I'd rather see you wait a little bit longer and put a bigger down payment down and buy fewer houses with bigger down payments, because that is a bulletproof plan. But when you start off with a 6% yield and you put down 25% in a place that doesn't have out of control taxes, I don't think you do. Coming from New York, you guys don't have out of control taxes. You will generate a positive cash flow even after you make your loan payment. But use the website to test those theories, because that's what it's there for. Great question. Why single-family homes over apartments? They're both residential real estate. There are 2 features of single-family homes that attract me, that is how I would answer this. Number 1 is it's granular, meaning if I was going to, over my lifetime, accumulate 20 doors, I could have a 20-unit apartment building, or I could have 20 homes. If I change my mind about something, I don't like this part of town anymore, I can sell those 2 houses. If I need to send a kid to college, I can peel 1 door off. It has the ability to be utilized where you own a portfolio, but you can get in and out. We were talking earlier about the second thing. Let me finish this point. So the granular nature of it, it gives you the ability to accumulate over time, so you can buy one, and then buy another, and then buy another, and build. You can think about, I want to take a position over here, like I'm buying in Charlotte right now, where a new train station got approved for light rail commuters. I'm buying everything I can near that light rail station. So that's a strategy that wouldn't have worked 2 years ago. I didn't even know about it. It didn't exist yet. So you can sort of strategize over time. This is happening, I'm going to take a position. That's happening, I'm taking a position, right? And then when you sell, same thing. You can peel off a piece here, a piece there. The second feature is that the values and the main demand for single-family homes is driven by home buyers, not investors. And so if the economy goes a certain direction, let's say some people predict a big recession coming in the next few years, okay? If that happens, what will happen is home ownership will decline, which means rentership will increase even more, which means investors in single-family homes will win on the rising rents. So will apartments, okay? If it goes the other direction and things keep cranking and home ownership, because of millennials, comes back into fashion again for them, and the home ownership rate starts making its way back up to 65%, 68% again, we may wind up seeing a softening in rental demand, but we win because those millennials are driving the prices of our houses up. Right? And so when you own an asset class that is not driven by investors like you, it's driven by another party who is unemotional. People don't buy houses because it's a good time to buy. They buy houses because they got married or they had a kid. Right? So there's a disconnect between the majority of demands and the investment quality, and so you can usually depend upon the fact that the upward pressure is really inextricably tied directly with population growth and nothing else. So how do I think the aging population is going to change things? Well, I don't have a great sense of that, and so I try to usually stay in my lane. The way I would answer that is just simply that I've been paying close attention to housing for 30 years, and every time something has changed and looks like it might be bad, something always seems to slip in to pick up the slack. Millennials could be the answer to that. People who want to age in their own homes could be the answer to that, right? I haven't seen anything happen. That's why the stress test is such an important thing to me to look at, is that the most, the harshest stimulus that the housing market anywhere in this country ever experienced happened 10 years ago, right in plain sight. And so I kind of look at any changes in demographics, any changes in the economy as like a storm, maybe a violent one happening on the surface, doesn't affect the Gulf Stream, right? Population growth is the Gulf Stream. So as long as Minneapolis continues to grow, population-wise, nuances of different parts of demographics wouldn't concern me. But there's more to it, and I haven't researched it.
What do you think about Airbnb?
Airbnb, interesting. Airbnb, of course, short-term rentals, much more active. It's just another way of doing real estate investment. I think there are places in the country that it's much more active, meaning that you're move in and move out. You can get a higher yield. It's not as bulletproof as a strategy as this kind of a new phenomenon, so there may be some things hiding out there that we haven't figured out yet. One of them is that it looks like on whims, some governments say we're going to put a freeze on short-term rentals, and that's a variable that would scare me a little bit. But places that are hot on it, it's an interesting thing. I mentioned I'm buying you this train station opening up down in Charlotte. We looked at 2 houses that were more expensive, substantially more expensive than I want to buy. I'm paying $200,000. These are 4, but they're brand new and they're beautiful, and they're literally a half a block away from the train station. And so one of the ways that we're thinking about making that work, because it won't work with a 2-year rental, is not Airbnb, but executive rentals. So we're actually thinking about buying these houses, furnishing them, and then making them available for a higher rent per square foot to people for 6-month leases, so shorter term than I would normally accept. So there's a lot of twists and turns, and Airbnb is one of them. Yes, sir.
You mentioned light rail, and light rail is kind of a buzzword around these parts. Take a long time for it to actually come in. A lot of people have different views on is it good or bad. What's your experience with light rail coming into a city?
The commuter rail, I grew up in New York, and I saw the counties that have commuter rail, the average price is twice what the ones that don't have commuter rail are. I think what happens is the town right around where the train station is going to be is going to gentrify. You're going to have coffee shops and bars and restaurants coming right there. I think it opens up. One of the things that you see when you study demographics, or you study metro areas, is something that we call a 2-step. So I'll use New York as an example, right? It used to be Manhattan, and then the boroughs, Queens, Staten Island, Brooklyn, the Bronx, right? That was the country back a long time ago. Then the suburbs, one county outside of New York City came alive. A lot of them had rail, a lot of them didn't, right? But one of the things that happened like in the 70s is that a lot of the companies in Manhattan moved out to the suburbs. So people that were commuting an hour from the suburbs, all of a sudden could commute 5 minutes. A lot of them moved an hour away. And a whole nother outer ring of suburbs came alive because the commutable distance to jobs just extended out. So 2-step. Jobs were here, the people lived there. The jobs came here, the people started to move there. So I see a lot of evidence that commutability not only is going to light up the town where the train station is going, but it might light up a town 25-minute drive away from that train station that right now is a really good deal, because even though the train station is not in that town, they're going to drive 25 minutes to get a parking pass and go on that rail. So I think that's a winner right there for me. My money's where my mouth is on that one. Yes, sir.
What kind of reserves do you keep in addition to your down payment when you buy a new property?
10% of your rent going into reserves every month. Okay, if you can be disciplined and actually open up a separate account, you'll be so happy when something breaks, and it always does, that you're not gonna sit here and say, I was gonna get my transmission fixed and now I gotta write this check, right? There's already a side account. So 10% of gross rent going into a maintenance account. A couple of months worth of mortgage payments is obviously a good idea, but from the standpoint of maintenance, we recommend 10%. It's your money, it's just sitting there, but then what that reserve does is it keeps owners from making the biggest mistake ever, which is not fixing stuff when it breaks. All right, so when you start thinking, am I gonna fix that or not, you shouldn't even be thinking that. It's broke, it's broke. It broke, and you need to fix it right away because you're gonna wind up, your tenants are gonna suffer, your investment plan suffers. It's a business, they're the customer, so 10%. So the question is, how do you balance, because you're right, a lot of the advice is it's all about cash flow.
Yeah.
And the appreciation is something you don't count on. I think they're both critically important, and I think a good plan takes both into consideration. I mentioned earlier, one of the reasons a lot of people don't put any kind of numbers on appreciation is they have no way to know what it's going to be, so that it is just going to be what it's going to be, and they have no way. We have a method of being able to at least forecast it based on history, but I would think of it this way. Think of cash flow as the staying power that allows you to ride out any storm. So if you buy well and you put a good down payment down and you're cash flowing, tenant leaves, you replace them, you miss a month, no big deal, right? Something bad happens, the market crashes, like it did back in 2006. Your home value has gone down. Even if it's less than you owe on the mortgage, as long as you have income coming in, you can wait it out. It always has recovered. I believe it always will recover. If it does go down, which again only happens once, but if it happens again, you're gonna wanna have the staying power. So I think cash flow is a crucial element. You can't do without it, but don't just buy the cash flow, pay attention to the appreciation also, because the big Wall Street firms all said what you just said. Cash flow, we don't care about appreciation. They all won on appreciation. The reason why they scored was that the houses became more valuable. The cash flow allowed them to raise money and deploy it and wait for the eventual rising in values, but it was the combination that worked for them. So I don't weight one more than the other, they're both two halves of the pie.
Single family versus multi.
Single family versus multi. Just kind of talked about it a couple minutes ago, the idea that single family is granular. You can buy and sell one house at a time. You don't have to put all your eggs in one basket.
Talking about duplexes, smallplexes.
Oh, I love those. So duplexes and fourplexes are also granular. Those are fantastic. Okay, when we say single family, we really mean 1 to 4. I focus on the single, but I love the 2 and 3 and 4 families also. What you do lose, that whole part I said about the home values being supported by home buyers, is less true about 3-family houses than it is about single-family houses. And so because they're almost identical, they have a way of sort of slipping a little faster if prices do wind up coming down in that area, because houses are not ever the same. They're always unique. Condos can be a little bit too similar, so you wind up getting undercut by another seller. Okay? Do we have to cut? Okay, one more, sure.
Fit townhomes kind of right in between the condos and the family style then?
Yeah, I think of townhomes as condos, one and the same, what I talk about. Okay? Listen, thank you so much for being here. I hope this was valuable to you. Please stick around and